All right, Coach Prime has entered the chat. And when Deion Sanders speaks, especially about his sons, you better believe the football world stops what it's doing, puts down the Gatorade and listens. Because this wasn't just a father defending his kids. This was Deion Sanders, the Hall of Famer, the cultural lightning rod, the mentor, the icon, the brand, stepping in with a mic drop moment that makes it clear. He's not letting the NFL write his son's stories without a fight. Let's set the scene.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
It's been a tense few weeks. Shedeur Sanders has been stuck in what we'll generously call quarterback purgatory. Good enough to sell jerseys and trend on Twitter, but not ready enough to start. He had a rough preseason game, yes. The pocket collapsed, the playbook got conservative, and Shedeur spent more time running from defenders than running the offense. Critics jumped at the opportunity. He's not ready. The transition from college to the pros is too big. This is why you don't rush rookie QBs. Meanwhile, over in Tampa Bay, Shilo Sanders, the hard-hitting, swagger-dripping safety, was in the news for all the wrong reasons. A heated altercation with a Bills player, questions swirling around his camp status, and rumors that he might be on the chopping block. Practice squad, maybe, or out entirely. That's when Deion stepped in. And when he didn't just defend. He checked the narrative. Coach Prime made it clear. His sons are ready. Mentally, physically, spiritually. They've been preparing for this spotlight since day one, and they're not defined by any one preseason stat line or roster projection. They're built different. And if the NFL can't see that, well, that's the NFL's problem. Let's start with Shilo. Now say what you will about that practice altercation. Tempers flare in camp. It happens. But what doesn't always happen? A young, fringe roster safety still making headlines after that moment and still pushing his way onto a practice squad in an absolutely loaded league. Shilo's fight, both literal and metaphorical, isn't about showboating. It's about staying in the league, scrapping for every snap, forcing teams to say, we can't cut him. We need that energy. And love him or hate him, Shilo has that dog in him, that intensity. That, you're going to feel me every time I hit you edge. Tampa Bay sees it. That's why they're keeping him around. And then there's Shedeur, the golden child of the Sanders saga. He didn't have the preseason game fans wanted. He was pressured, rushed, flushed from the pocket. He didn't exactly shine. And that's where the vultures came circling. But here's the thing the critics aren't saying out loud. He got no help. The line couldn't hold for 2 seconds. The scheme was stripped down. The reps were limited. The rhythm? Non-existent. That's not a reflection of talent. It's a reflection of bad infrastructure. And yet, Shedeur didn't pout. He didn't crack. He kept his composure, answered the media with grace, and showed up the next day ready to go again. That's QB1 energy. That's leadership. So when Deion Sanders stood up and addressed the media, it wasn't just to clear the air. It was to remind everyone who's watching that his sons are more than just their box scores. They're ready for whatever comes, he said. Football or not. Practice squad or Pro Bowl. Active roster or next opportunity. Whether it's cleats or cameras, Coach Prime made it clear. His boys don't need the NFL to define them. Because here's the thing about the Sanders family. They're not just athletes. They're brands. Shedeur and Shilo have social media presence most rookies would kill for. Sponsorships, documentary cameras, business sense, cultural relevance. They have a plan B, C, and D. But make no mistake, they still want to play. They still belong in the league. And this is where the conversation takes a turn, because now it's not just about performance. It's about perception, about how the league views the Sanders boys. About whether they're being treated as legitimate players or media distractions. There's a whisper going around that maybe, just maybe, the league doesn't want the Sanders effect in full bloom. That maybe the attention, the Deion legacy, the flash, it rubs some folks the wrong way. They haven't earned it yet. They need to prove themselves like everybody else. Too much hype, not enough tape. But here's the reality. Every player in the NFL gets judged differently. You're fooling yourself if you think otherwise. And for Shedeur and Shilo, the target is bigger. The margin for error? Smaller. Because when your dad is Deion Sanders, when your name is already a headline, you don't just have to be good. You have to be undeniable. But guess what? They're okay with that. They're used to that. And Deion made it clear, they're not here to prove anything to people who've already decided not to believe in them. They're here to work, to stay ready, to create, to build, whether that's on the field or beyond it. Because that's the other part of Deion's message, maybe the part people didn't want to hear. Football isn't everything. It's not the only dream. It's not the only path. And Shedeur and Shilo? They're not staking their entire identities on whether they make the 53-man roster this fall. They've got business plans, production companies, influence, options. So if the league wants to sleep on them, fine. But they'll still be visible, still be relevant, still be winning in their own way. That's the difference between most young players and the Sanders sons. They're not waiting for the league to hand them validation. They're writing their own playbook. Still, let's not sugarcoat it. This stings. Not just for them, for fans, too. Everyone wanted to see Shedeur burst onto the scene like a comet. Everyone wanted to see Shilo laying out wide receivers every Sunday. Everyone wanted the Deion Legacy 2.0 to hit the NFL like a culture bomb. Instead, we're getting practice squads, unfair critiques, awkward media coverage, and endless what-ifs. But the story's not over. Not even close. If anything, this is the part of the movie where things get gritty, where the music slows, where the doubters get louder, the spotlight dims, and the real test begins. The prove-it phase. And knowing the Sanders family, they live for this part. So whether it's week 1, week 10, or 2026, don't be surprised when Shedeur takes over a huddle and makes everyone regret sleeping on him. Don't be shocked when Shilo's out there cracking helmets and calling out plays like he never left. And don't ever bet against Coach Prime when his family's legacy is on the line. Because this isn't the end of a story. This is the part where it gets really good. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Are the Sanders boys being overlooked? Is Deion right to push back against the narrative? Should Shedeur be starting right now? Vent, support, debate. It's your turn. And don't forget to subscribe. Because if Shedeur and Shilo are about to turn this into a comeback story, you're gonna want front row seats. You're still here. You're locked in. And honestly, I don't blame you. Because this isn't just a story about football anymore. This is a story about family, legacy, and the nerve it takes to stay calm while the world tries to write you off. And at the center of it all, Shedeur and Shilo Sanders. Two brothers. One spotlight. And a father, Deion Coach Prime Sanders, who's not just defending them, he's challenging the entire system while doing it. Let's be real. Most NFL dads sit in the stands and clap quietly. Not Deion. He's never been that guy. Coach Prime built a career off of defying expectations, breaking molds, and making sure the camera never looked away. And now, he's doing the exact same thing for his sons. Loud, unapologetic, unshakable. Because when the critics start circling, and oh, they've been circling like buzzards, Deion doesn't hide behind PR teams or deflect with silence. He answers. And when he speaks, he doesn't whisper. He preaches. His message? Crystal clear. My sons aren't here to impress you. They're here to be them, and you can either keep up or get left behind. Let's pause on that, because that line, that energy, it hits different. Shedeur and Shilo aren't the first young players to struggle in preseason. They're not the first to face setbacks, limited reps, or skeptical coaches. But they might be the only ones being criticized this heavily for simply being themselves, media-savvy, confident, self-branded athletes who walk into every room like they belong there. And for some reason, that confidence scares people. Maybe it's the Deion factor. Maybe it's the cameras. Maybe it's the fact that they didn't come into the NFL quietly, heads down. Yes, sir, ING their way through team meetings. They came in with expectation. They came in with flair. They came in like Sanders is. And the league? The media? The old guard? They don't know what to do with that. It's easier to root for an underdog who doesn't talk too much. It's easier to praise a kid with no name value who shocks you. But someone like Shedeur? He's been on your radar. He knows he belongs. He expects greatness. And when greatness doesn't show up immediately, the critics line up, grinning like they've been waiting for this moment since the draft. And yet, despite the pressure, the narrative, the noise, Shedeur and Shilo aren't folding. They're adjusting. Let's talk about that preseason game again. The one that the talking heads are using as ammo against Shedeur. Yes, the stats weren't pretty. Yes, the pressure got to him. But let's remember what kind of situation he was dropped into. Rotating offensive line. Limited playbook. No rhythm. Barely any first-team snaps leading in. And a game plan that looked like it was written on the back of a napkin. What do you expect from a rookie in those conditions? And yet, despite all that, you saw flashes. Not just arm strength. Not just mobility. But command. The little things. Getting teammates lined up. Audible awareness. The fire in his eyes after a busted play. He looked like he wanted that moment again, not like he was shrinking from it. But instead of getting another shot, what does he get? Speculation about practice squads. Whispers about being protected from exposure. And yes, talk of drafting over him. That's the part that stings. Because you don't just protect a quarterback from the spotlight because he had a shaky quarter. You protect him if you're scared, not that he'll fail, but that he'll actually succeed before you're ready. And that's what this whole situation smells like. Fear. Fear that if Shedeur balls out, the pecking order flips overnight. The narrative has to change. The coaching staff has to answer for why they didn't believe sooner. The fans? They'll demand more. That's pressure most franchises don't want. But guess what? Shedeur does. He's not the guy who needs to be handheld through a rookie season. He's not looking for excuses or soft landings. He wants the work, the criticism, the grind. You can see it in the way he talks to media. Measured, mature, not rattled. He's ready for the fire. And over in Tampa, Shilo is showing that same DNA. That cut me fine, but you'll feel it. The hit against the Bills might have crossed a line, sure, but it also sent a message. I'm not just happy to be here. I'm here to earn it. And if you can't respect that intensity, you don't get football. Now, let's go back to Deion for a second. He said something in his interview that should be printed on t-shirts. My boys don't need football. They choose football. That one line says it all. This isn't desperation. This isn't some sad cling to a dream. This is two young men who want it, but don't need it. Because they have options. They have value outside of this league. They have Deion's blueprint. And it's more than just go routes and DB drills. It's influence. It's visibility. It's ownership of your own story. So if the NFL wants to box them in, downplay them, diminish them, they'll just build something bigger outside of it. And when that happens, if that happens, the league might finally realize what it lost. The energy, the marketability, the icon status. You don't get players like the Sanders brothers every day. Players who are this athletic and this media ready. Players who can ball on the field and trend off of it. That's not a distraction. That's value. So here's where we land. The Sanders boys aren't out. They're in the middle of the storm. But they're not flinching. They're studying, working, waiting. And when the moment comes, oh, they'll be ready. And Deion? He'll be right there, shades on, smile wide, not just saying, I told you so, but reminding everyone that he's been saying it all along. So to the teams sleeping on Shedeur, to the coaches underestimating Shilo, to the critics licking their chops, enjoy your moment. Because when the comeback hits, it won't be quiet. It'll be prime time. So now it's your turn. And if you thought Deion Sanders' comments were just some protective dad sound bites for the cameras, if you thought he was just doing damage control, you weren't paying attention. Coach Prime didn't step into the conversation just to defend his sons. He stepped in to draw a line in the turf. To say, you can question their stats. You can critique their tape. But what you're not going to do is pretend like these boys don't belong. That's not a media play. That's a warning shot. Because what we're seeing right now with Shedeur and Shilo isn't just about roster battles or preseason jitters. It's about something bigger. It's about how the NFL treats players who don't fit neatly into the box. It's about how narratives get built, destroyed, and rebuilt again before a single regular season snap is even played. And most of all, it's about legacy. Now look, you don't have to love the Sanders brand. You don't have to follow the documentaries or buy into the aura or care about their off-field ventures. But if you're honest, you've got to admit there is something undeniably magnetic about this family. And yet, that magnetism, that spotlight, that unapologetic self-worth, it makes people nervous. Not just fans, not just salty analysts who are allergic to swagger, but organizations, coaches, front offices, the kind of people who still believe you should act like you've been there before, even if you have been there and brought the ratings with you. That's the real issue here. Because this isn't about whether Shedeur or Shilo can play football. They can. Are they raw? Of course. Do they have room to grow? Absolutely. Are they the only young players in the league who've struggled in preseason? Not even close. But the difference is they came in loud. They came in with cameras, charisma, millions of followers, brand deals, and a Hall of Fame father who walked in front of them saying, "These boys are him." And you know how some people respond to that? With ego, with resentment, with this subtle, unspoken attitude of, "All right, show us then. Prove you're more than just the hype. Let's see if you're worth the noise." And the second things go sideways, boom, they pounce. That's what's happening right now. One rocky preseason game, and suddenly Shedeur goes from promising rookie to might not be NFL ready. One scuffle in camp, and Shilo goes from hard-nosed safety to roster risk. Come on. We've seen players with worse reps, worse behavior, worse everything, still get second and third and fourth chances. But when your last name is Sanders and your social media numbers are higher than your snap count, different rules apply. But that's exactly why Deion said what he said. Because he knows. He's been through this. Remember, Deion wasn't exactly the league's golden child when he came in. He was flashy. He was bold. He wore jewelry on the field. He brought the cameras with him, and then backed it up with Hall of Fame play. And now, his sons are trying to carve their own path in a league that still isn't comfortable with personality that doesn't come pre-packaged in humble hard worker press quotes. But here's the truth. You can't silence charisma. You can't mute the noise when the talent is real. You can delay it. You can bench it. You can bury it under depth charts and hope it fades quietly into the background. But eventually, it rises. And that's what Deion knows better than anyone. It's why he's not panicking. It's why he didn't throw blame at coaches or criticize play callers. Instead, he said, "We're ready either way. This is just part of the journey." And that attitude? It's terrifying to the establishment. Because most players need the NFL more than the NFL needs them. But not the Sanders boys. They've got backup plans, visibility, influence, audiences. And here's the thing. They're not even using that as leverage. They're not saying, "Play us or we'll walk." They're not threatening to pivot into entertainment. They're not pulling a drama queen exit stage left. They're working, showing up, training, staying ready. Because as Deion said, we love this game. We're here for the right reasons. And that's what makes this moment so strange. Because this league claims to value players who grind, stay focused, ignore the noise. Well, what do you think Shedeur's been doing this whole time? He hasn't been tweeting subtweets. He hasn't called for a trade. He hasn't even publicly questioned the organization keeping him behind quarterbacks who couldn't draw a crowd with a GPS and a search warrant. He's done exactly what coaches say they want from a rookie. And yet, he's the one getting questioned. But let me ask you something. What happens if Shedeur gets one real game with real protection and actually shows out? What happens if the league's most followed rookie QB suddenly starts throwing darts on Sunday and putting up numbers? You think the media will say, "Oh, we were wrong. He just needed time"? Or do you think they'll pivot immediately into saying, "He was always destined for this"? Because that's what they do. They doubt you, until you make them look foolish. And then they rewrite the story like they believed in you all along. It's not fair. But that's the business. And Shedeur knows it. Which is why he's not rushing. He's not panicking. He's biding his time, letting the criticism roll off his back like water off a duck. And when that time comes, oh, it's going to be loud. And Shilo? Same energy. He's a heat-seeking missile in a league that's gotten soft on defense. He plays like every hit is personal, like he's sending a message with every shoulder pad. And sure, that comes with risks, late hits, flags, drama. But you know what else it comes with? Fear. Receivers remember the guy who knocks the wind out of them. And even if Shilo starts on a practice squad, even if he has to earn every inch of playing time, the second he gets in a game, you better believe someone's gonna feel it. So here's the real story, one you're not going to hear on the highlight shows. This isn't the end for the Sanders brothers. This is the tension point. The stretch of story where the world doubts them, where the edits go cold, the headlines turn sour, and the stakes feel heavy. But they're still standing. They're still ready. And they've got a father in their corner who's not just giving them pep talks. He's building a runway. So you can write them off if you want. Say they're distractions. Say they're not ready. Say the NFL is just too big for them. But be ready. Because if you blink, you'll miss the moment they prove you wrong. And when that moment comes, you'll hear it before you see it. Because Coach Prime won't be quiet about it. And neither will we.